Myoho Renge Kyo Nam Myoho Renge Kyo Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Oh. Hi everyone. I was just thinking, why so somber, Sylvain? I've been reading ahead, and as you've already picked up on, there's a sequence of writings here that, in a real way, document Nichiren's experience from the time of the Tatsunokuchi persecution through the ensuing exile to Sado Island. This collection of writings, as I read ahead, really impresses upon me the nature of Nichiren's communication to those in his inner circle, those that might be termed to be major disciples, that would later be part of the 6 senior disciples that would continue Nichiren's teachings after his passing, to the very important lay believers like Shijo Kingo, who were very supportive, but who lived the life not of monks but of samurai, a monk of a different sort, if you will, and letters meant to be distributed through the numberless followers, lay believers, if you will, and some letters, as you'll see, to specific individuals who also were involved in the events of Tatsunokuchi, or who stayed by Nichiren's side when they took him to incarcerations, and some who sent their vassals or even head priests who sent lower priests to bring Nichiren food and supplies and communications. So Nichiren wrote letters that were personal. He wrote letters that were, all of his letters, you could argue, had some sort of a teaching in them, but the nature of the teaching is different. So the personal ones might be very supportive to the individual while giving them a little piece of scholarship to wrap their practice around. Others were to honor the commitments of other monks. Others who are jailed, like this one that we're going to read, is a very short one, which is why I'm blabbing so much. And others that were meant for distribution. And as you'll see, here I'm writing this, please distribute this among the followers or the other monks, so that everyone can benefit from not only an update on my condition, but also the opportunity for me to demonstrate how I'm living the law and how to teach further. Some were of a very high order in the following. They were meant for priests to disseminate to priests. Others were for priests to disseminate to followers. Others were just for followers. Others were for friends. So you see, Nichiren is nurturing all of these different levels. He's not just saying, I am, superior and just listen to what I say. He's very intimate with every type of follower, every type of Buddhist who is endeavoring to practice Buddhism correctly. So it's fascinating, and it's also quite a window into the nature of political activities in the 13th century in his day. So Having said all of that, let's just read this one-page letter to priest Nichiro while in prison. Tomorrow I'm to leave for the province of Sado. So they've been holding him in an arrest in somebody's home since the Tatsunokuchi failed execution, and now they're heading out to his exile, Sado. In the cold tonight, I think of what it must be like for you in prison, and it pains me. Admirable Nichiro, because you have read the entirety of the Lotus Sutra with both the physical and spiritual aspects of your life, you will also be able to save your father and mother, your 6 kinds of relatives, and all living beings. Others read the Lotus Sutra with their mouths alone, in word alone, but they do not read it with their hearts. And even if they read it with their hearts, they do not read it with their actions. It is reading this sutra, or the sutra, with both one's body and mind, that is truly praiseworthy. Now I'm going to take the opportunity here to point out this translation is wrestling with this Asian concept of mind-heart. Shen in Chinese. This idea, unlike the West, when we think of our mental commitment to something, we talk about strictly in terms of the brain as an organ, to whether it's in sports or whatever, of a mindset. Well, the idea of a mindset in Asia and these writings is that there's no separation between the mind and heart. Now, that's not because Asians are stupid and think that there's an actual thinking process that happens in the heart. What they're respecting is that the mind is not just the brain, that the mind is certainly the brain, but also highly affected by intent and attitude, something that's more attributable to what we would call in the West emotions, which we in the West tie to the heart. So this is why you have in these translations this wishy-washiness between mind and heart. They seem to flip it around because they're wrestling with this concept of intent and attitude, which you can't staple down to an organ. So it's important to understand that that's what we're talking about here. When you read the Lotus Sutra with your intent and attitude, you're doing as Shakyamuni said in the Lankavatara Sutra many times, almost scolding his highest, most learned disciples. Stop being stuck on the rhetoric of the words. In the Lankavatara, there was this series of, I think it's 108, it comes up a lot in philosophies, religions, what have you. 108 is this number, right? But there's supposedly this question and answer back and forth between Shakyamuni Buddha and this monk. And at some point, you could almost, in the translation anyway, get a sense that Shakyamuni was getting a little fed up. Because basically, his interlocutor was asking the same question over and over and over again with slight differences. You know, is that table blue? Yes, it is blue. Well, is it blue because it's not purple? Is it blue because it had more blue than it does red in it? Does red even enter into it? Is red in the blue, but we don't see the red because we see the blue? How blue is it? And finally you go, look at the table. It's a table. It has color. Move on. It's the idea, it's the meaning that's important. You get so caught up in these little tiny subtleties of grammar and words that you're missing the whole picture. And the truth of the matter is, although a lot of Zen proponents will take this as their invention, it comes from the Lankavatara and other sutras, but certainly there, that Buddha used the example of, look, you're spending all your time paying attention to the finger instead of the finger pointing at the moon and getting to know the glory of the moon. You're spending all your time looking at the finger, analyzing the finger, and you're missing the whole thing. The finger pointing at the moon analogy is from Shakyamuni Buddha, not Zen. But they appropriate it happily because it's a great analogy, right? All right. So, it is reading the sutra with one's body and mind, attitude, intent, that is truly praiseworthy, since the sutra teaches that, quote, the young sons of heavenly beings will wait on him and serve him, swords and staves will not touch him, and poison will have no power to harm him, end quote. Certainly nothing untoward will befall you. When you are released from prison, please come as quickly as you can. I am eager to see you, and to show you that I too am well. So, Nichiro, you might recognize as one of the later discussed main disciples, senior disciples of Nichiren Shonin. But Nichiro was one of the priests who stayed by Nichiren's side during the Tatsunokuji persecution. And because of his involvement, while Nichiren was taken away to be exiled to Sado, Nichiro was incarcerated and put in a prison, along with others. So this is a letter, again, a little step along the way, as Nichiren is being the night before he's to be sent off to Sado with his entourage of military and so forth to guard him and take him. He sends this note off to Nichiro of encouragement. Quite something. But again, I point out the next letter will be letter from Teradomari along the journey to Sado. And you can imagine back then it wasn't a matter of hopping on a bus or such things. Walking, mules, the guards on horseback, that kind of thing. So it would take days, right? Weeks maybe. So lots of opportunity. Hard to do while you're walking, but certainly whenever a rest was taken, certainly not for Nichiren's benefit, but for the guards and so forth, he had an opportunity to scratch down some notes, a letter, and then send it off with one of the entourage that, I guess for some reason, the larger armada allowed, quite fortuitous in a way. So there's this great documentation of this whole process from the persecution and the beheading attempt all the way through his exile to Sado, and more letters from Sado. But we get to peer into this process a little bit. So I'll enjoy getting into the next one with you. And for the time being, thanks so much for spending some time with me. As always, ask questions, like, subscribe, share. Let's be bodhisattvas together, okay? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo.